There are only two foods that have been linked to cancer, and in this video, I'm showing you exactly what they are. You know, there's a lot of conflicting information online about foods that cause cancer, but the truth is that it's much simpler than that. There are only two foods that have been linked to increasing the risk of cancer, and here, I'm showing you exactly what they are and why. Now look, it might be shocking to you that there are only two foods that have actually been linked to cancer when it feels like everyone on the internet is saying that so many foods cause cancer: dairy, sugar, meat, soy. But in reality, there are only two. So let's dive in, starting with the first food that has been clearly linked to cancer: processed meats. Now, there is a very clear link between processed meats and an increased risk of cancer. The scientific evidence comes from large epidemiological studies. This research looks at large groups of people and has clearly shown that the more you eat processed meat, the higher your risk of cancer. It's been found to increase the risk of breast cancer, colorectal cancer, colon cancer, and lung cancer. So this is where it becomes really important to focus on the type of meats that you're eating, not eliminating meat altogether. There's a big difference between eating deli meat, bacon, and sausage and eating chicken breast and fish. Okay, but what exactly is a processed meat? Processed meat is a meat that has been altered due to fermentation, curing, or salting. This is done to enhance the flavour, the colour, or to prolong the shelf life. An example of this would include hot dogs, deli meat, sausage, or beef jerky. Okay, but what about nitrate-free meat? Can you still eat processed meat as long as it's nitrate-free? Now, nitrates are a natural food chemical that's often used as a food additive. It works by stopping the growth of bacteria and enhancing both the colour and the flavour. Nitrates are often added to processed meat, like hot dogs, deli meat, or bacon, because they inhibit the growth of bacteria and prolong shelf life. But it's not yet clear if it's nitrates specifically that are causing the increased risk of cancer due to processed meats. We know that foods labelled nitrate-free often still contain nitrates. Nitrates naturally occur in our environment and in our foods. For example, a food labelled nitrate-free will often contain celery juice, which is a nitrate, but this means they still contain nitrates. So basically, we don't clearly understand why processed meats increase the risk of cancer. It could be due to nitrates, but it could also be due to something else. So purchasing and eating nitrate-free processed meat will not lower your risk of cancer. If you really love processed meats, you might be wondering, what is the actual risk? Is it worth taking on this risk to still eat processed meats? Fortunately, there's a study to answer that exact question. Now, it obviously depends on the amount of processed meats you eat and over what duration. It's estimated that about 50 grams of processed meat per day, which is not a very large serving size, will actually increase your risk of cancer by about 18%. As a cancer survivor myself, this just seems too high. I don't want something to increase my risk of cancer by nearly 20%. I want to lower my risk of cancer, and that means limiting processed meats. But there's an important distinction to remember. You don't have to go all or nothing. You can still enjoy processed meats once in a while. This will still help you keep your risk of cancer quite low. A cancer survivor that I work with in the Cancer Freedom Program was extreme with her processed meat consumption. She decided to remove all processed meat and all red meat from her diet. Because she really didn't enjoy seafood, that basically left her with chicken. That was her only option for meat. She got to a point where she was at a friend's birthday party and they were all sitting around and enjoying each other's company. There were appetizers and a big charcuterie board, but she wouldn't eat anything. She wouldn't eat any of the processed meat because it would increase her risk of cancer, so she just starved. But this is no way to live your life after cancer. You can lower your risk of cancer or a cancer recurrence, but still enjoy processed meats every once in a while if you want. Having one serving of processed meats once a year will not significantly increase your risk of cancer. Instead, think about all the changes you've made since you were diagnosed with cancer. You probably eat a lot less processed meat, and that is making a big difference to your risk of cancer. By making all these changes over weeks to months, you can now enjoy these things on the occasional special occasion. Enjoy it and feel good. Now, there's a big difference between enjoying processed meat once every year or every 3 months and eating 50 grams every single day. A lot of people eat processed meat every day for their lunch. It's not uncommon for people to have a deli meat sandwich every single day. This approach is just not good for your cancer risk. But if you want to occasionally enjoy a sandwich or have bacon at brunch, then go for it. But if you really don't like processed meat to begin with and can completely give it up, then that's the best option. Okay, and that brings me to the second food that's been linked to cancer, alcohol. I don't think it comes as a big surprise that alcohol is not great for your health, but you may be surprised that alcohol increases your risk of cancer. Alcohol has been associated with increasing the risk of 7 different types of cancer. Now, there does appear to be an association between the amount you drink and your cancer risk. We know that if you drink about 1 drink per day, that increases your risk of cancer by about 9%. But if you drink half a drink a day, or about 3 drinks per week, that increases your risk of cancer by about 4%. If you drink more, the risk is even higher, but if you drink less, the risk is even lower. But there is no safe amount of alcohol to drink. Red wine has long been defended for having antioxidant properties. It was thought to be cardiovascular protective, but this has long been shown to not be true. You can still get all the same antioxidants from whole food sources without the harmful effects of alcohol. Now, alcohol is a common way to come together and socialize and celebrate. If you feel like you cannot cut alcohol out completely and still want to partake in social settings every once in a while, then you should. The amount of alcohol you consume is proportionate to your cancer risk. So the more alcohol you drink, the greater the risk. I'm often told stories about a little old grandma who had a glass of wine every night with supper and lived to be 124 years old and never got cancer. And yes, those stories do exist. But when we look at large populations from anywhere in the world, it's been shown that the more alcohol you drink, the higher your cancer risk. That doesn't mean that everyone who drinks alcohol will get cancer or that everyone who avoids alcohol will stay cancer-free. There are many, many more nuances to cancer than that. But if you want to lower your cancer risk, then there's a clear strategy you should start using, and that's to avoid or limit alcohol. Okay, now that you know these 2 foods that have been clearly linked to cancer. Thanks for watching.